If you are wanting to create your own book of shadows, whether it is your first or you just want or need, like me, to make a new one, you've come to the right place. Today's video is the second in a series being created for what will become a playlist dedicated to every witch's favorite tool. Greetings and welcome to Crone House. If you are new here, welcome. If you are a regular viewer, thank you so much for coming. I recently posted the first video in this series that explained why I needed to have a new book of shadows and a little bit about the beginning process. If you have not watched that video, I will link that video in the description below, probably at the end of the video as well. Ultimately, I chose to keep my original book that my husband made and the cover, keep the cover intact, and do a little bit of repair where it needs repaired, but to take the pages, remove the pages from here, take whatever information I needed in here and apply it to the new pages that are going to go in. But there's a lot of information in here that I want. There's a lot of spells in here that I want. There's a lot of information on and recipes. There's some recipes in here for like my incense cones and things, some and my magical oils, those kind of things I really need to have. Perhaps some I'm not a lot of ritual things because that goes somewhere else for me, but this is going to be my personal, it's my husband's too, but it's really my personal tried and true recipes and spells that I have used, that I use. This is not just things that I found that I want to just put in there because we talked about that in the last video. We're not going to reinvent the wheel and put every bit of information in the universe in this book. Okay, we're limited in our space, and we want to have this be something that is personal to us, so that we know we can use everything in here in our own practice. Okay. Now, since I'm reusing this book, the very first thing that I did was I counted the pages because it fits. We see how many pages fit in here. The paper that I'm using is not really the same paper, but it's close in weight, I believe. And I counted these pages in here, and I have what has 448 pages, but that means 112 sheets, and I'll explain that when I show you the paper. Okay, so that gives me an idea. I don't have to do exactly the same, but I want to stay pretty close. Okay, so that is the first thing, one of the first basic decisions that I have to make. I made the decision on the cover, or then I said my pages are going to be determined by the size of my cover. Now, if you're going to be reusing a cover, or if you're going to be reusing an old book, some people might be inspired by the junk journal community and repurposing the covers of old books, discarded covers for the Book of Shadows. That's going to determine your page size. And in my case, I had a unique issue because I wanted to use copy paper. In order for my pages to fit properly in this book, I need to use paper that is 9 by 12. 9 by 12. Okay, 9 by 12. Folded in half, which makes sheets that are 6 by 9. Not 8.5 by 11. If you saw my first video, you saw that I was dyeing paper that was 8.5 by 11. This is 9 by 12. This is the difference, okay? This is not going to be the right size for my book. So I had to alter. I thought, well, these I have a lot of this, and I love to dye it. It was fine. And I think in the first video I dyed all the small paper, all the 8.5 by 11 inch paper. I dyed some with black tea, and I dyed some with what did I use? Black tea, onion skins, dried papery skins from onions, and I dyed some with this particular big one was avocado, the pits and the skins from avocados. And I added a little bit of baking soda to get it to be like a pink color, the pinkish color. Okay, so if I want to make this out of this paper, I'm going to have to do some alterations. And today I'm going to show you a little bit of how I did that. But I also got some of this, and I dyed it, and what did I get? I dyed some using green tea. Green tea, I think I had one red rose tea bag that I threw in with a lot of green tea, and it made sort of a grayish brown, grayish tan, a little more gray than the other. And then I dyed some using with coffee too. So I got a little bit of variations in paper from this. Okay. Before I get into talking to you about some of the basic decisions that I needed to make while creating my book of shadows, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the aesthetic of my own personal choice. I've been very inspired by a lot of the junk journaling community. They're very creative. I've been watching a lot of the videos, and they're very creative, and some of the ideas they have are beautiful. My main dilemma in using some of the ideas that I have seen in my own book of shadows is that a lot of the junk journals have so much ephemera and so many fancy things inside that there's very little room in some of them for journaling at all, let alone recording information that is going to be really important to me in my practice, in my craft. Okay, I want to say, whatever you do, remember the purpose at all times of what your book of shadows is for. It's information for you to use, and if you don't have the information in there, it's not going to be very useful. I mean, I see a lot of people, even as I was looking at book of shadows flip-throughs, there's a lot of really pretty art, a lot of pretty artwork. There's a lot of pretty clever bits of poetry here and there that is maybe useful. Even some of the things that I see people putting down as spells don't really have information of how you do the spell. They just have maybe a cute little, some kind of a really lovely little incantation or something, quote, that they're going to use for an incantation, for a spell. That's just a page of nothing but that. But there's no information on what you use. What are the other ingredients in your recipe, if you want to say. Okay. So keep in mind all the time what it is that you're doing. And if I'm going to put too much of this junk journal community into my book of shadows, it's going to be junk. It's not going to be a book of shadows. Just keep that in mind. That being said, there's a lot of things that I do like. I really like some of the things that I see, and those are the things that I'm going to adapt. Those are the things I'm going to adapt for my own book. Okay, but first things first. Okay, first things first. I need to cover the basic information first. Physical size of my book, whatever I decide to use, whether it is a purchase book, a book of shadows, or something that I create, or maybe if I take an idea from use an old, a really lovely old book. In this case, I'm using an old book of shadows, but it could be another, like a nice heavy leather-bound textbook or something that is not useful anymore. That can be gutted, and you can use that as a cover. You can make your own cover. There's a lot of things you can do. You can use a scrapbook with the posty screw things. If you want to be able to expand it, you can use a 3-ring binder. Of course, it's your choice. For my aesthetic, I choose a book. I choose this book, the leather bound. I like this size. And so my first thing was, if this is a size book, I'm going to actually use this book. How many pages is my book going to have in it? and I counted them. I counted them, and this book actually has 448 pages. And by pages, I mean if I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that way, okay? 448 pages, which is made up actually of 112 sheets. When you fold this sheet in half, you'll get something that will fit into my book, which is 6 by 9, 6 by 9, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4 pages in it. Okay, so that's the difference between a sheet and a page. So you don't get mixed up with my terminology. Okay, so I decided in this Book of Shadows, as it is, it contains 448 pages, 1, 2, 3, 4 pages, made from 112 sheets. Okay, now that is 9 by 12 paper. I have a lot, and I did get some of this, and I did dye. You have seen me dye the smaller size with onion skins, with black tea, and with avocado, but you have not seen me dye the big. I bought some of this, and I dyed it using black coffee, and instead of dipping it in the dye bath like I did, soaking in the dye bath like I did with the tea, with the onion skins, or the avocado, I just painted it on the paper with the paintbrush. I have experience with coffee dyes in the past, dyeing fabric with coffee. Tea dye, coffee dye fabric, and I used to use, instead of tea dyeing fabric that was very, very popular, like in the, I want to say perhaps in the 80s, in the 1980s, maybe into the 90s, it was pretty popular to do for, because we wanted linens. I think in the quilting community we were aging some of our fabrics with using tea dye or coffee dye, and it was really lovely. But I found the tea dye took a long time to sit, and I was making a lot of it. And I found coffee it picked up the dye so fast, but it also was sometimes easy to over dye it, to get it too dark. So I wanted to try just painting it on, and I did that, and it came out really well. And as a matter of fact, I even experimented with adding a little bit of the coffee, and I used instant coffee for my experiment. And I even experimented with adding some of the dry coffee crystals onto the paper as it was still wet. And I got some interesting results of that. I was sort of excited to see. And they show up on some of my pages. You see, I get some spots and some interesting looking stain kind of things. So I was kind of happy with that. So I did that. And then I also wanted to try some green tea. And it has been my experience in the past that green tea makes pages a little gray. And I didn't really want gray pages for some reason. I don't really like the gray pages. So I did add, I had purchased some red rose tea for a special ancestor altar for my mother, because that was her favorite. That was one of her favorite things was red rose tea. And so I had tea bags, and I experimented by putting one tea bag in with the green tea, and it really made a lovely color. It made it, it softened it. It softened the tea, so it's not so gray. It's a little more leaning towards, it's a little grayer than the coffee, but it's not stark gray. So I really like that. I like that a lot. Those pages, after they were dyed, the 9 by 12 would simply just be folded. Okay. But the ones that were 8 by 8 and 8.5 by 11, I wanted to be able to use those papers because I have a lot of that paper all the time. But I wanted to be able, in order to use those, I had to create what we call hinged pages. Taking two small pages and hinging them somehow together, connecting them somehow together, and then they will be cut to size. So that's what I want to show you next. Here I have the 9 by 12, some of the 9 by 12 pages that have been folded. And I get really lovely, you know, variety of shades. They look good. Some of them look a little crinkly, and that's not going to be alarming. They will flatten if I choose. If they're really too bumpy, lumpy, I might give them a little bit of a press with a warm iron. No steam, but just to flatten them. But I kind of like the look of them, that they don't, you know, and they're going to compress in the book a little bit as they go. But in case if it causes me some problems when I want to add, when I want to write on the page or add artwork of any kind, it might be beneficial for me to iron that first, but that's not a big deal. Anyway, I get a variety using the coffee. Some of them came out really kind of crazy, or the green tea. But a couple of things are lacking. I don't have some of the warm tones from the onion skins, or the black tea, or this beautiful pinky color of the avocado that I really like. So I need to be able to make pages that I can use to fit in this book out of those pages, those pages. Okay, so I'm going to show you what I did. I did a couple of things. I just experimented. There are a lot of things you can do in addition to what I have shown. But basically, what I did first, was I took 2 pages. It's going to take 2 pages to make the one. Here's my template. And I kept this paper as a template. I kept it white and I kept it folded. So I could, as you can see, once I start cutting them, it's sometimes hard to see which direction the page is going because it looks almost square. Even though it's not, but it you know, it's just a ½ inch difference. So I remind myself all the time which way is up. Because the very first thing I do is I cut the length of the paper so that it is 8.5 by 9. I cut off 2 inches. I cut off 2 inches, okay? And so that I'm left with this size. So in order for me to make then this, I need 2 of these pages. They don't have to match, but I need 2 of them. I'll show you, I need 2 of them. And I need to somehow hinge them together. Something to hinge these together so it can be folded, right? So it can be folded to match the size of this. Okay, there it matches this way, but I need 2 of them in order to hinge them. Okay. So the reason I wanted to show it to you this way first was I want to show you when I go to hinge them, no matter what method I use, I'm going to leave a little gap. And I think you can see that on my table here where my blanket is. You just need to be able to see a space. Because if you have those too close together, when you go to fold those and try to sew them into a signature, it's going to be difficult. You're going to have a, you know, it's just going to cause you some problems. So I want to see this, okay? Now what I want to show you today is I have several different ways. There's many, many, many ways to do this, but I just picked a couple of them that I thought were interesting. How am I going to hinge these, okay? The very first thing I did, the simplest perhaps, is I used washi tape. Washi tape, okay? I have washi tape that is about 1 inch wide. There it is, okay? It's like 1 inch wide. And I just put washi tape over both sides. I put it on one side, and then I put it on the other side, and then I folded that in half. And that created a lovely signature, just the right size. Just the right size, okay? Now, this is going to make it really easy when I go to sew in my signatures. I have that place in there that I can, that's going to be nice. It's reinforced, and it's going to take my needle and my and my cording very easily when I go to sew it. Okay. Now, you don't have to have as wide as this inch wide, but I really liked it. And I just happened to have this, which I thought was nice. This has some healing herbs, healing herbs on here. Okay. So I did some of those. Okay, that's nice. Okay. Another way I hinged was I took simply overlapped these two pages by about an inch, You can see that, okay? Just by about an inch, okay? And I glued that down. I used just a glue stick to temporarily glue that down so that it would hold. And then after it dried, I took it and sewed it. Glued it down. I hope you can see that. I hope you can see it. I used white thread because it was on my machine, but I think it would look really nice if you used color thread, like something that would contrast, like even black thread or maybe red or something. But what I did was, after I glued that, I took a zigzag stitch on my sewing machine and went over this join, and then I flipped it over. That would be glued down like that. And I took my zigzag along that edge, and this is what I got. Okay. And it makes a beautiful joint. It's nice and secure. There's a nice, and then I folded it in half. Then I did my fold. Okay. Now, I think I folded it first and then I zigzagged. It doesn't matter but it's just a temporary glue. You don't want to put anything too strong of a glue. I used a glue stick because if I use too heavy of a glue, it might clog that up when I try to sew. But a glue stick worked really well. It's just a temporary fix, and you can get that stitching done on that. So I have. Then after the stitching was done and folded, I then put this in my cutter. So then it would be like this, but you see it's too big. And I cut it to 6 inches so that I had 6 by 9, okay? So I have those. I have the ones that I did with my washi tape. And then I did one more variation. No, I think I did one more variation to join them. Is I here's my other piece. Oh, I took one of those pieces. There's my 8.5 by 6 by 9 by 8.5, and I folded over an edge about an inch. I made a fold about an inch on one of the sheets. So then when I take the other sheet, I'm just going to insert it inside and glue that down. Again, not quite going to the fold, but just short of the fold, just a little space, so that when it folds over, it does not get this caught in it, this edge caught in it, and make that, make that mess. Okay. Fold that down, and then I'm going to take it to the sewing machine, and I sew this edge, and I think on this one, I just sewed a straight stitch coming down here. I will show you, and then on the inside, along here, it would be here, I did a straight stitch along there, okay? So that it ends up to look like, and then after it's sewn, I take this, and you can see these are uneven edges. I'll even turn that over so you can see it. I take this edge and I cut it 6 inches. So I will just cut that off wherever 6 inches is, and this is what I get. This is what I get, okay? There's my sewn edge, straight stitch there, and then when I sew this straight stitch here, on this side I get 2 rows of stitching. 2 rows of stitching here, 2 rows of stitching here, okay? This is just the back of this. And especially if this were colored thread, that might look up really pretty. But there it is, it's the same size as the rest of them. Same size, okay? Now for variations, of course, other than the thread color, for variations, I can take, instead of putting 2 light colored pages together like this, I can take another colored page and put that in there. See? That's interesting. So I get, when you see in my journal, it'll be, you'll see this edge and you will see this color page, or so it will look like this, okay? Rather than this, I can make it look like that, or I can make it look like this, okay? You see the difference? And if I varied the color of the stitches, it would be even more so. But it makes, again, it makes a really lovely, secure braiding surface, nice page, okay? So I have those. And then I did one more thing that I thought was interesting. Put these back in the bin. I just went back to these pages that were full size pages. And some of them are going to just be sewn in plain. That's perfectly fine. But if I wanted to make it a little more interesting, I took a strip of linen, a torn piece of linen, torn, along the outside edge. This one's a little better. Took a torn piece of linen on the outside edge, and I glued that down. Okay, so that when it was folded, I see the raggedy edge along there. Okay, kind of interesting. It was a little different thing. Of course, in the inside, those pages, it's just plain. But it's going to be fine. That's going to be really easy to sew through, because remember, I'm just sewing through this paper. Okay. So I have a nice variety of pages I'm going to end up with, all told, to use in this book. But we're going to say, how am I going to put this together? What is the process that I'm going to be used to putting them together? I have determined for my Book of Shadows, again, I'm determined that I'm going to make approximately 9 signatures with 12 pages in each, with 12 sheets each. Which will be 48. 12 sheets will give me 48 pages in one signature. I'm going to have 9. I always like to do odd numbers because of signatures, because if you do even signatures, when you do odd number signatures, your center signature will have, the center of your book will be a full sheet, okay, some kind of a full sheet sewn, and you'll see the stitches here. If you do an even amount, you're going to have this as your middle of your book. They're not gonna, they might gap. So this looks better when your book is open to have them an odd number, okay? And I think I'm going to be doing 9 signatures with 12 sheets in each, or 12 I'm going to call them pages, but they're actually sheets. It will give me a total of 108 pages in my book. Okay? Now I just have here a random I just picked some random, so they have a representation of, you know, what I have. I have some plain, some full-size sheets, and then of course I have some sewn, different ways sewn, washi tape, whatever. Okay. So I want to say, caution you here, because the reason that we want to fold this together now is if I just started, okay, I'm going to start with herbs, and some herbs that I use, and I'll tell you why in a while. But right now I want to say, I want to do, let's say for instance, I want to do rosemary. So I might, you know, the beauty of this is I can make my sheets before they sew in the book. And then if I have a problem, if I spill ink or if I spell something wrong and I want to redo it, I can redo it before it gets sewn into the book. So this is beneficial. But one thing that is, you have to be careful if you're going to do this, is what if I want 2 pages for rosemary? Okay. And I make, this is one rosemary. And then I decide I'm going to do 2 pages for lavender. So I make this sheet. 2 pages, a double sheet of lavender, if I did, okay? That means when it would be sewn in the book, I have rosemary, I don't know what, some random thing, lavender, some random thing, rosemary. You have to be able to put your book together so that perhaps this would be rosemary. Okay, the order of the pages changes in the signature. So you have to be able to put them together first, if I'm explaining that well, but not sew them, just put them together, however you like them, and then put them aside, maybe put a clip on them. Maybe put a clip on them to hold them together, keep the signature intact, and then you fill it up, okay? Then you can fill it up. So if I want to mix this up a bit, let's just mix it up so I have a little bit variation. What I have, I might want to put this, just however you think you like it. You can change it later. And then this one. We don't have to be, there's no rhyme or reason, we just want to be kind of random. Now this won't affect you if you're going to dry all your pages the same, but in my case, I like the variety. Okay, so there we have it. We have 12 pages, I think, put together in a signature. Okay, so when I go to open it, this is what I'm going to get. When it's sewn, that's going to kind of show me what it is. Okay, and do I have 12? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, that's perfect. And if I wanted to hold it together, I could just put a clip on it. If I like the order. If I like the order of that. Okay? Okay. Now I can do this with all of my signatures, and I can work on whatever signature I want whenever I want. Just remembering that if I'm going to do a double page, I need to do this page and this page if it's the same item. If it's a two, this page or this page together, okay? And if you want to, so that you don't get confused, You can always put, this is going to be rosemary and rosemary. Just really lightly so that you can erase that later. But that means that rosemary goes on these two. So to put it out. Or you could go through and number, if you want to keep these numbered, you can number 1, 2, 3, just really lightly with a pencil. You know, 3, 4, 5, 7, you know, just so that you can remember that I really like this order. Okay, which that could be erased later. Okay, so what comes next? What comes next? I don't know yet how many pages that I'm going to really actually be using in my journal. So where to start sometimes can be tricky. To a lot of people, that kind of intimidates you. So my advice to you is start someplace where you know the information is going to be. That's why I like this kind of a system, rather where I'm creating signatures that are going into in a book, which I can order in any way I want, rather than doing an established book like this one. When I received this book, it was, the pages were already sewn in, and when I wrote on the page, I wrote on the page, and I didn't know how many pages to leave or whatever I wanted. If I wanted things together, that's always a problem. This is why people end up putting indexes or table contents or tabs or whatever in their book, and that's something I didn't want. That was just an aesthetic I didn't want in mine. That is a personal preference. Don't, if you don't agree, I understand that, because I think I'm probably kind of unique in that perspective. But I didn't want that to stop me in making a book that wasn't a little bit orderly. Okay, so here I know I have 48 pages represented, and it doesn't mean that things are limited to this. But I'm going to start with my herbal information. And by herbal, I mean what herbs that I use, I know I use. Okay, and I made a list. I went and actually made a list of things that I use in my parlor here, in my cupboards. I wrote down the things that I use in my garden. I wrote down things that I acquire from other places, or that are things that I acquire in my kitchen. And I made a list to see how many I have, and I probably have more than 48 pages will hold. I don't have 500, like some people, every herb that they ever heard of or that they can get off the internet they put in here. I just want to say, only use the ones that you use. But you'll see, particularly if you're going to include things like maybe roots, or maybe the seed of something. Like, for instance, I use caraway a lot. I don't have a caraway plant. I don't grow caraway. I don't know, but caraway, what I use from caraway is the seeds. So would I include the caraway here, or would that be in another place? I don't know. I'll make the decision as I get to it. But if I have more than this, it doesn't matter, because my signatures are not going to be separate in my book. It's just the way that they're sewn in. So the next signature that comes after this is not going to be, let's say this is a signature. I'll just put this together real fast. So I can have the right amount of pages, but you can get the idea. Okay. Let's say this is my next signature. It's just going to be sewn. It's just going to show like that in the book. That's all you're going to see. You're not going to really notice that this is a signature and this is a signature. The only way you would notice is if I would put a cover on this part and identify it as it being herbal, or, you know, like apothecary or spells or whatever I want to put in there. But I'm not likely to want to do that, because I want to be able to have all of maybe my herbs in one place. Yes, but I don't know that I have every herb that I'll ever use. I'm pretty sure about most of them that I use, because I've been doing this for so long. It's very rare that I would pick up another one and use it when I know I can get the same effect with what I already use. But in any case, I might want to leave room, like a blank page or two within here somewhere, that I can always probably at the end, that I can always add an herb. But if I leave a space, a page at the end, and I don't add another herb, I can put something else on that page. So having blank pages within your Book of Shadows, just a limited amount, makes sense. Okay. I want to say that I do not plan on alphabetizing my herbs. This is one of the biggest stumbling blocks that occurs when, if you alphabetize them and then you find later when you want to add one, it changes your whole order. If I just know that in this section of my book, in this area of my book, my information on my herbs is going to be there, I can very easily go through it and see the herb that I'm trying to find. I don't need them to be in alphabetical order. Okay. That way, if I want to choose and I add one, I can add it. Okay, without it disturbing my whole world, and not making me a dependent on having tabs or having, you know, index or whatever, things that I don't want to have. Okay, so that's just a little bit of advice. Same with your spells. You're not going to, like when you do your spells, think about it that way. You're not going to put your spells in alphabetical order. How could you do that? Yes, if you're going to call it prosperity spell, love spell, whatever. But if you're going to call it something like, I'm trying to think of the names. I don't hardly have names of spells. A lot of my spells don't have names that would be identifiable, you know, they would have a description rather than a name. And that's not something that's easily alphabetized. So give those kind of things some thought when you're doing it. Give yourself a break. Give yourself a break. This is a big undertaking, and we don't need to make it more complicated than it is. So just give yourself a break and do general organization that is going to help you, but don't get so specific that it's going to cause you to become a, you know, to really affect your ability to use the book in a negative way. We don't want that. We want this to be a tool that is very easily, very accessible to you. Keep that in mind. Keep it in mind. But anyway, this really works for me. This really works for me. And one of the reasons I want to use the herbs first is because it's going to be a lot of pages, but also I'm going to be able to show you a couple of different things, other than just how I'm going to order my things. I'm going to say, for the herbs, I'm going to be using, I want to determine what kind of fonts, or I don't want to call them fonts, I guess they're called hands. What is my handwriting style going to be in the book? And this poses another issue that I want to address. One of the things that holds us back, those of us who are trying to be creative in completing a Book of Shadows, is we want it to be unique. We want it to be different. We want to have the pages be maybe different. You don't want to page through and have it look like an encyclopedia where everything is exactly the same. And you can, if you don't believe me, just look at anybody's Book of Shadows flip through. You're going to see all kinds of really interesting pages and how they play against each other. And that's the stimulation that we get when we look through it and see all that exciting, the artwork, and whatever they have in there. Okay, that's what excites us and gets us moving magically, which is the idea of the book. Okay, but if I try to be, I'm going to say this is going to have, all told, 108 pages in this book, give or take. I can't be so creative as to have 108 pages look completely different. Like, that would be crazy. And I think that's sort of what keeps us from going forward. We're putting too much pressure on ourselves to be too creative, perhaps. So what I want to do is I want to take like my herbal part, the herbal sections, and I'm going to do them in certain ways. If I'm going to use pages, they're going to be either full pages or they're going to be joined in one of the ways that I just showed you. Washi tape, or with an overlap with straight stitch, or an overlap with zigzag stitch, whatever, or maybe with a linen. I'm good for this section. That's what they're going to be. They're just going to be one of those things. Okay. How am I going to do my handwriting? I decided if I'm going to do cursive, if I'm going to print, am I going to do block lettering, what it's going to be saying. I'm going to decide on the font or the hand that I use for the title, like of the herb. Okay, you know, uh, I can't even think of one. Nettle, stinging nettle. Let's say I want to do stinging nettle. Am I going to write that or am I going to print it? They're all going to be the same. On every herb, it's going to be that printing or whatever it is going to be uniform throughout this section. If I'm going to do cursive or whatever style of handwriting I do, it's going to be unique. It's going to continue throughout this section. I don't know. It might go through the book, but I doubt it. I think I'm going to treat some different pages in different ways. So right now, I'm not going to worry about those other sections of the book. I'm going to only work about this. The other thing that I'm going to worry about is how, of course, I'm going to have illustrations. I'm going to have illustrations of my herbs within reason. Within reason. I don't really need to draw a caraway seed. That would be kind of silly. I might have a picture of a caraway plant if they're whatever that looks like. I don't know that that's even necessary because I'm not going to identify the plant. I'm only going to use the seeds. So I might put, you know, that on have that share page with another one. But how am I going to transfer my images to here? Now it'll be very simple. You know, there's a lot of simple ways to do it. A very common way to do it is to just make a photocopy of the herb, find a good image of it, and cut it out and glue it into your book. I said I didn't want to do that because I don't want the excess bulk of every page that has an image when I just glue it in there, or something I glue in there. It's going to add bulk. It's going to make my pages really thick. I want my book to be able to close. Okay, and a lot of people get into the problem that their book is too thick and it won't close. So as many ways as I can transfer images without having add thicknesses, the better, because I'd like to add some things. I would like to add some tucks and envelopes and, you know, secret things, and then some things will be glued in, or so I will be doing that to some pages, but I don't want to do that to 112 pages. Okay, so I'm going to show throughout this book some different ways of adding art, adding illustrations, and one of the ones I'm going to do this time, I will be showing you next how I'm going to add just for the herbal section. So when I do the herbal section, the images are going to be added in a certain way. That takes the pressure off of me that I don't have to, I'm an old woman. I can't take 10 years to make this book of shadows. I want it done. I do want it done, and I realize for a lot of people, it's a work in progress, but I really want it done. My old book it's falling apart. And this is really, it's important for me to have this, so I'm really trying really hard to do it. But I think this is one way that I'm going to be able to approach it. I'm going to take one bite at a time. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. That's what they say. How do you form a book of shadows? One section. I'm going to do sections. I'm going to do, some things will be just pages, but what I know herbals is going to be section. Okay. So other than that, I will be showing you the method to add the illustrations. I will be showing you what I'm doing for my lettering, etc. Okay. And for now, we're not going to worry at all about sewing these into my book. We're going to get all of my signatures made, and then when I put them together, they will be sewn when they're going to go into the book. That's what I'm going to show you. And we're going to do a little different kind of binding than I did on my tarot journal, because I don't want to, on the tarot journals, I had stitching showing on the outside. I'm going to do a different way to put them in the book. So you'll see that in the future. Okay. I hope this helped. I don't know if it helped or not. I don't know if it helped or not. Okay, so today we just dealt with maybe the tedium of getting the papers, showing you my process in getting the papers prepared for my signatures so I can start on my herbal. I want to show you what my inspiration was, some of the inspirations I had for determining what is going to go, what information is going to go on those pages. I'm going to show you how I determined my lettering for those pages, and also I'm going to show you how I added the illustrations for these pages. Okay, and that's going to be coming up. All of those things are going to be coming up next in my next video. So if you haven't seen the first one, I recommend you go back and watch, and then you can watch this one, and then stay tuned for part 3 in my series of building on the Book of Shadows. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below if you have made a Book of Shadows, what kind of things you use to determine what goes into yours. I'd love to. I think they'd be very interested in that. And I will see you soon. As always, I'm Rebecca, and I wish you blessings.